We have a guest on the channel today, and he's gonna take a bath on me, I know it.
With 2023 almost wrapped, I wanted to reflect on some of the things that I learned this year. Maybe you found me through TikTok, but if you don't know me, I'm Nicole. Lots of people call me Shaps. I'm a cinematographer and video producer based in Toronto. It always takes me a while to get warmed up to the camera because I don't do this often. Hopefully 2024 is filled with these YouTube videos. There's always a process, and I wish it was a little bit easier to kind of just sit down and do the YouTube thing. Maybe that's what 2024 has in store for me, who knows. I wanted to share the lessons that I learned over the years within the business and the creative side of things, and hopefully this kind of inspires you to learn from my lessons or at least relate to what you also went through. The first thing I did consistently this year was TikTok, and so that leads me to my first lesson, and that is learning to diversify your skill set. This year I operated within 3 buckets. My first bucket was cinematography. This is the sole reason why I do what I do. I love creating images, I love framing, I love lighting, I love the entire process of creating art through motion. The second bucket was video producing. I was brought on to a lot of sets as an outsider producer, which was also very interesting, under other production companies. TikTok was completely new this year. I started in February and I made a promise to myself to post once a day, every single day for the rest of the year. This was a cool little self-experiment to see how consistent and disciplined I could actually be with sticking to the posting once a day thing. The thing that I found the most helpful was shooting everything on my phone. This allowed me to have the least amount of resistance possible. I was able to pick up my phone, throw a light on, or use natural light and just talk to the camera. By diversifying my skill set, so not only being on set as a creative, not only being on set as a producer, focusing on the admin things, the pre-production behind it all, but also finding that passion and that excitement within TikTok allowed me to exponentially grow my sales. It allowed me to reach and connect with other creatives that I definitely wouldn't have otherwise, people that are in the States and even people in Toronto. My takeaway from this chapter was to recognize how important consistency really is. My next lesson is understanding how important your network is. If I'm not getting the clients through Instagram or TikTok, I'm usually getting it through word of mouth from any other crew members or clients that I meet. Interacting with other filmmakers on Instagram and TikTok have also led to really cool collaborations. I would absolutely recommend attending industry events. I went to Profusion this year. Most importantly, not being afraid to go alone to these events. Before all of these events, I'd always get in my head and be a little bit overwhelmed and unsure if I should even go. 10 times out of 10, it is always worth it, even if you are going alone. And 9 times out of 10, because I live in Toronto, I would actually run into someone that I know. Number 3 is spec work. I did a lot of spec work this year. Spec work is essentially projects that you do for free in order to grow your portfolio. The one lesson I learned with spec work is to absolutely make sure that is not done on a client's dime. We shot a commercial this year. The budget in general was very low. However, I wanted to increase my production value. So what I did was I did not allocate any budget towards my own rate. What I did do was allocate budget towards my crew members and the equipment that I use. What ended up happening was color comes back. It's a beautiful, bold, punchy, saturated final product. I sent this to the client and unfortunately the client did not like it. They wanted something a lot more toned down. Throughout the entire pitch, even though we seemed to be on the same page, because the client had obviously paid for this project, they have final say. Make sure that any of your spec projects, you have complete creative control. Overall, I'm really happy with the amount of spec projects that I did. I was able to gain so many reps working with a bunch of the same crew members, which was very important for any kind of workflow when we would actually get hired. Lesson number 4 is to understand the business side of things. As a freelancer, you are managing both the creative and the business side. Understand contracts, understand pricing, and understand how to maintain that client relationship so that you can continue to get hired for the future. I have been a sole proprietor for about 4 years now, and I just incorporated. I would not have known to do that if I didn't ask my accountant. If you're also looking to get incorporated this year, I would absolutely recommend founders.law. They are the company that I hired to incorporate my business. I find it really valuable, especially time-wise, to hire the right people to do the right things, and this is the perfect example. Yes, hiring a lawyer might be a little bit costly at first, but it goes a long way, especially if you want to do things properly. Lesson number 5 is a big one, and that is drop your ego. Leave it at the door. I believe the filmmaking industry is based off of 2 very important things. The first one is your ability to continuously learn. If your ego is telling you, I've learned everything I need to know, I don't need to learn anything else, you're probably wrong. And number 2 is relationships. I personally love working on a set where everyone is open to feedback, everyone is open to hearing other people's creative input. Overall, it just makes for a more enjoyable experience for everyone. I personally don't like when it comes out on my end, and I definitely don't like being on the receiving end. The main lesson here is to treat everybody on set with respect, regardless of the amount of knowledge they know. 2024, leave the ego at the door. Leave it. Number 6 is managing finances wisely. Being a freelancer, income is super irregular. This was the first year that I had moved out, so I was responsible for rent. What I did was set money aside for rent. I also set money aside for taxes, which I am now paying quarterly. I would absolutely recommend doing this because paying this as a lump sum at the end of the year is just not a gouge in your bank account that you want. I personally base my budget off of the income that I made in the previous year. It sometimes gets a little bit diluted and confusing when you base your budget month to month freelancing because some months are great and some months aren't so great. So it's nice to zoom out and look at the year as a whole. As a freelancer, I use QuickBooks. This is essentially a bookkeeping software that I use to track all of my expenses, as well as send invoices, send estimates, and track the income that I'm receiving. Eventually, it would be nice to get someone to do my bookkeeping for me, but until then, I am doing it myself. If you would like to try QuickBooks, I'm pretty sure that this link will give you some sort of discount, so feel free to try it out. Number 7 is to embrace criticism and feedback. Most of the time, if people are giving you feedback, they are hoping that you will improve, and this is with good intention. Sometimes our knee-jerk reaction is to get defensive and try to prove that we knew this already or that we don't need their help. Constructive criticism is part of this creative process. Try your best to accept feedback graciously. They are really only trying to help, and use that to improve your skills and your work. Number 8 is adaptability. This industry is forever changing. There's new camera bodies, there's strikes, there's vertical video, which everyone seems to hate. You also will be on set and things will go south. Some things will not go as planned. There will be things that you will need to figure out on the fly, and you need to be adaptable. That is the coolest and most valuable quality for a crew member to have. In order to be adaptable, you kind of have to realize that a lot of it is never really in your control. You can do your best to be as prepared as possible for any kind of circumstance that might happen on set. But at the end of the day, being adaptable is the best skill set that you can have. Number 9 is legal awareness. If you are heading into 2024 without contracts, what are you doing? Contracts will help protect you and the client. I know for sure a couple times this year I let things slide, and in the end, it probably wasn't in my best interest. One thing I am absolutely adding into my contracts this year is late fees. Because I'm a freelancer, I might not be taken as seriously as an agency or as a production house might seem. Adding late fees adds a little bit of rigidity and validity to these contracts in order for me to get paid on time. And lastly, but not least, is the lesson of balance. Something that I'm very grateful for is the fact that I love what I do. Sometimes those lines can be blurred between the work that I'm doing for fun and the work that I'm doing for work. I've been able to do a really good job of keeping up with my physical health, going to the gym often, eating relatively healthy, and understand what my true capacity really is as one single freelancer. This year I took up drumming. That was a lot of fun, drumming lessons. I also got a cat. That's been taking up a lot of my time. Investing in my space. I moved into this apartment about a year ago, but I'm always investing in things that will help make this space feel like home, especially because I work from home very often. Finding that balance between this like work life and personal life, especially making more time for friends and family, that has really helped me avoid burnout this year. In general, a big takeaway that I want to move into 2024 with is discipline. I think that's my word of the year, is discipline. It's consistency. It's all about putting the action before any kind of feeling that you might have. If I feel uninspired, if I feel bored, if I feel sad, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. I need to get my work done. I need to make sure that I'm consistent in all of those 3 buckets that I talked about in the beginning. Thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully I start putting out more of these. If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, comment down below on a lesson that you learned in 2023 and maybe a lesson or something that you are taking into 2024.